What'd you run in track?
I ran the 60 indoor and 100 outdoor and the relay.
Oh, dang. Okay, you were a short sprinter.
I had a deal with the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Canada. I had a deal with European Protein in Wolfsburg, Germany. Like you could print flyers.
Guerrilla marketing.
How they used to flyer clubs, you know?
Yeah. Car windows.
Okay, but that's how you marketed back then.
Yeah.
Because if all those people came to train every day,
It would destroy the gym.
it'd be a shit show. Yeah, it'd be a shit show.
Welcome to the Eden Group podcast. I am joined today by Greg Jones. Greg Jones is the owner of 4 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu facilities in the Seattle metro area, Gracie Barra in Tacoma, Bellevue, Marysville, and Renton. We were introduced by a former guest on the podcast, Shannon Higgison. Greg, it is wonderful to speak with you today.
Thank you, and it's great being here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So the purpose of the Eden Group podcast is to explore the business models that deliver health and wellness to society. You are a gym owner in the area, so I really want to hear your story, how you got to this point. And so I'd like to go back to the beginning, where you grew up, and what was your first foray into health and wellness?
So you're going to have to take it back to college and me playing football at Eastern Oregon University, which was in the mid 90s. And what I did is I started personal training people out of demand. So I was in really good shape, worked out a lot. I was kind of following a bodybuilding lifestyle, and I had done my first bodybuilding show when I was attending college.
Oh, wow.
So I was on the high protein macros, meal plan stuff from way back before it was even popular. Like it's, now it's like this huge thing. But what happened is, I followed a diet to get stronger and to put on muscle for college athletics. I actually played 3 different sports in college. I played tennis and football while Community College, and then I ran track and did football at my 4-year Eastern Oregon.
What'd you run in track?
I ran the 60 indoor and 100 outdoor and the relay.
Oh, dang. Okay, you were a short sprinter.
Yeah. What I did is I got into track to get faster for football, obviously, and they invited me out, and I was fast enough to make the team.
Nice.
And I was like 230 pounds running a 5 flat, 40. I ran an 11 flat 100. So I was pretty fast.
That's fast.
Yeah. And I credit a lot of that to my training. I trained for power and explosiveness. I Olympic lift, and I did lots of speed training. I trained with some guys that used to, there was a guy, Kenny, I can't remember his last name, but he trained a bunch of Seahawks. He trained like Eric Metcalf, Eugene Robinson, Derek Fenner. So I used to run with a bunch of Huskies and Seahawks in the off season. And I was trying to get into the NFL or into, pro football leagues. And I had some offers in Europe and Canada, but I never got an offer in the NFL. So I kind of hung up my cleats after I couldn't get an invite to an NFL combine. I thought I was going to, that was my dream. That's what I wanted. So I worked in the off season a lot to get faster, to get stronger, to get more explosive, so I could be a bigger, stronger athlete to possibly make the league. And what happened and what grew out of that is people saw my eating and my lifestyle habits, and people just started asking me to train them. So I was at this Grand Run Athletic Club in La Grande, Oregon, working out, on the side. That was my gym on the side, other than working out at the school. And people would just see me lifting and be like, I'd have ladies come up to me going, "Hey, can you get us in shape?" And I'd never even thought about training anybody, thought about being a strength coach, or I was going to school to teach and coach, but that was like coaching football. So that's how I started in getting people in shape. And that's what kind of started me being a strength coach. So when I was done playing college athletics, what happened was I missed that physicality, right? So that led me into, I moved down to San Diego in 97, and that's when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, because I wasn't playing football anymore, and I was freaking out. I played football for 15 years.
Yeah.
I had this physical aspect to my life since I was 8 years old to my mid-20s, and I was just going, what the hell am I going to do now? I had a deal with the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Canada. I had a deal with European Protein in Wolfsburg, Germany. And I wish I would have taken it at the time. I thought I was going to get a shot in the NFL. And Tampa Bay looked at me after my junior year. They looked at some tapes. John Kidna was a real famous athlete that came out of my league, and I played against John. I actually beat him my junior year. We beat the #1 team in the nation, Central. And so I knew you could make the league out of the league that I was in, but I only had offers to play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL and then a team in Wolfsburg, Germany at the time. I regret not doing it now because I should have just done it for the cultural experience, but I had a girlfriend. I was in a full load of classes. And, I said to myself, well, I'm probably going to get a shot. Somebody's going to invite me in. I'll get on, some in the combine because Tampa Bay had looked at me. So I turned down the team in Wolfsburg because I would have had to drop out of my spring quarter and I had a girlfriend. Bad decision.
That
Then
seems so important at that age.
yeah. And then, so when I got out of college, I played semi-pro for a year. And that's when I got to deal with the Hamilton Tiger Cats in 97. They offered me 26 grand to go play on a frozen tundra for like 10 weeks or 12 weeks or however long the season was. And my agent was like, do you really want to do this for like 26 grand? And he's like, you can make more money painting what you're doing on the side right now. And I was bouncing and painting and like kind of calculating my next move. So I turned it down. And that's when I moved to San Diego and got into jiu-jitsu, looking for something physical. And then what happened is San Diego was a little bit of a shit show. Went down there. All my buddies from Seattle were like 5 years younger than me. So they're like 22, 21. Got up in the
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah.
So 2 questions. So did you grow up in Seattle then?
I grew up in Seattle, born and
You grew up in
raised.
Seattle.
Yeah.
And what took you to San Diego?
All my buddies were recruiting me from the time I was in college. So a bunch of Seattle transplants went down there to go to college.
Okay.
Some of them were at Point Loma, some were at USD, some of them were just out working, kicking it. And they're like, hey, dude, this place is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Like, get your butt down here. Like, when you're done playing ball, get down. And I was like, well, okay. So I had plans to go to San Diego State. I talked to the professors. They said, pass your GRE and we'll get you right into the master's program in kinesiology and exercise science. So I went down there with good intentions. I talked to San Diego State. I graduated with a 3.1. It was good enough to get into the master's program down there. Yeah. But I went down there and just partied, I just ran wild with all my buddies down there. Didn't get a lot done. I was working out. I was still training people. I was working as a bouncer downtown, the gas lamp quarter. And I was training people at like a 24-hour fitness. But I really wasn't applying myself like I should have. So what happened is I was training jiu-jitsu at a Hickson Gracie school with Carlos Valente was my professor. He's real tight with the original Gracie family. So in the first 3 UFCs, he was with that crew that was walking out with hoists. So I was at a Hickson school. His son was Vitor Belfort. And so I got to train with Vitor Belfort. The funny thing is about San Diego back in the late 90s is there was 5 jiu-jitsu academies.
Yeah.
In San Diego County, there's over 100 now in San Diego County. It's a
military town too.
Yeah, it's just saturated down there. I mean, there was 5 guys teaching when I was there. I mean, San Diego is kind of known as the Mecca of jiu-jitsu right now.
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah. Especially with the seals there and everthing. And
so what happened is because I wasn't getting anything done down there, I moved back to Seattle to kind of just get my shit straight, right? Like get my head on straight, kind of get out of the partying scene.
How old were you at that time when you moved back?
28, 29. Then, so what I did is there was a Half Gracie school in Burien, Washington that I became affiliated with. I was training at. When I moved back up here, I wasn't going to stop my jiu-jitsu. So I started training and I had an offer to buy in 50% of the business. So one of the owners wanted out and then I had the ability to buy in. So I bought into it. But in the late 90s, early 2000s, BJJ wasn't a great business model. It was kind of gladiator school and it was just a bunch of guys beating each other up. There wasn't any kids. There really wasn't any females except for like a random tomboy.
It wasn't like this white collar Mark Zuckerberg's doing it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't popularized. The first few UFCs that came out, so the word was out, but it wasn't, they didn't figure out how to make it a good business at first, right? So I did that for like 2-3 years. I moved the gym. It wasn't a great business model. And to be honest, I ended up kind of getting in trouble with the law. And then so I dipped out. There was a couple of people that ran with it at the time and I got out of it for a while. And then I kind of got into the corporate. So I helped my buddy open some big box gyms, some fitness evolutions. I got into I was a national sales manager for a nutraceutical company called Biogenesis Nutraceuticals.
Okay, I saw that on your LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so let's pause for a sec. So when you were first offered this opportunity to buy in 50%, you didn't do it.
No, I did.
Oh, you did do it.
I did, but it wasn't a great business model at the time. After like 2-3 years, we weren't making a ton of money because it just what we did. And also I didn't know what I was doing.
So I want to get into some of this nitty gritty. So
Yeah.
did you just have savings that you used? Did you take out loans to buy it? Like, where did the capital come from to buy that?
Yeah, I took out a loan. My parents helped me raise some capital for it. But also I was working and living at home.
Yeah.
So, I moved back with just the kind of failed thing down in San Diego. So I moved back with my parents. So I didn't have a lot of overhead. So I was saving my money, personal training and bouncing and doing that. And then, got a little loan from them and bought into it. But it wasn't the best business model. So I jumped out of it, got in the corporate
I
world.
want to double tap on that. So what was so bad about that model at the time?
There was no retention strategies. There was no curriculums. It was just you had an instructor and he showed a couple techniques and then everybody would just beat each other up. Like you'd learn a couple techniques and you'd spar. And that's how every class went down. Like there wasn't a program for kids. We didn't have kids classes. There was no females to speak of. And there was no digital marketing at the time. Like we had an ad in the Yellow Pages. I bought an ad for Hoff Gracie. We advertised and had like a little quarter page thing in the Yellow Pages. That's all and then you could do print marketing. Like you could print flyers.
Guerrilla marketing.
How they used to flyer clubs,
Yeah. Car windows.
Okay, but that's how you marketed back in the
Yeah.
day. And so I felt like I didn't really know how to make a successful gym coming out of the gates. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of doing something that was my passion. I was doing something that was like my main hobby after football, but I didn't know what I was doing. So that's when I went back into kind of like, let me go back to Gold's Gym. Let me become a full-time personal trainer. So I full-time personal trained. I was bouncing downtown. And then I got into, working in sales.
Okay.
And so that's when I started with Biogenesis Nutraceuticals. I was going to open a supplement company with the owner. This was the owner of ZipFizz, Innova Bars. He owned Biogenesis. He said, I'm going to give you all my resources and I want 10 products ready to go. And I'd already developed some products for Biogenesis as the national sales manager. So I developed a fat burner. I helped him develop a protein powder. And so he said, I want 10 products. I want a name. I want these trademarked. He goes, I'm going to give you all my resources. He goes, I can't do anything. You're going to be the president. You're going to run it. I'll give you all the resources you need, but I can't run it. Like you got to run it. Okay. You're going to be the president. I'm just going to be the investor. I was like, cool, let's do it.
Did he give you equity?
Yeah. We were doing a 50-50 and I didn't have to invest in anything. I just had to run the damn thing. Right. And
hell yeah.
work at it, which I'd already been doing with him at his other company. And I elevated fast. I was a rep and within 6 months, I made national sales manager of Biogenesis Nutraceuticals. But what he was doing, I was like, we need to sell supplements to the public and to gyms because we had a professional only line that we're only selling to naturopaths and chiropractors and professional people and that's what a lot of naturopathic companies do. They only sell to doctors and stuff. They don't sell online or in stores or on Amazon. Now it's changed a little bit. Some of them do. So if you've heard of like Metagenics, Standard Process, there's a bunch of different professional only lines. So anyway, this was in Christmas of 2012. He committed suicide himself. So I had 10 products ready to go. We'd gone down to the Metropolitan Bar and Grill. We celebrated the incorporation of the company. It was called ENRG, Evolutionary Nutrition Research Group. So I had the trademark. I had products. I was working with distributors and we were going to get some big, and we were just going to use his warehouse at the time to distribute. This was before Amazon too. Right? So this is when you had to do things like you had to work with companies, with reps, with stores. You had reps that reached out to people. You didn't have all this internet stuff at the time, right? I think the internet was just starting, but yeah, I mean, you did have some, I think, but not like what you needed now. So that was failed. And then I went and helped my buddy open 5 big box gyms called Fitness Evolution in the area. There was 5 of them. We were in Bremerton, Everett, Federal Way, Seattle, and Tacoma. And what it was an exit plan, was build up these HVLPs, high volume, low price, think Planet Fitness. You build up these gyms and then they sold them all to Planet Fitness. So when they sold them all to Planet Fitness, that was their whole goal. I was running the supplements. I was selling Riley supplements out of these gyms. And that's when he was like, if you're going to sell supplements out of gyms, he goes, we need to separate it from Biogenesis. It needs to be its own line. It needs to be a retail line. I was like, cool. So that's how we started it. So we started that, but I didn't get off the ground because he himself. This was a guy that was bipolar, kind of self-medicating, very successful guy. He had two 20 to $30 million companies under his wing. Guy was making like, 350, 400 grand a month out of his businesses, just raking it in. But he was conflicted. He was having a hard time. He was kind of in and out of, using things he shouldn't have been done, self-medicating, a couple bad marriages, that type of thing. And he just couldn't handle it anymore. So anyway, I had to switch gears, right? I had to switch gears. I helped my buddy open these gyms. I was running the group training and selling supplements out of these gyms.
Can we go into that story a little bit?
Yeah.
So where did the idea to open up HVLPs come from? What was the startup cost, and how long did it take you guys to get those? And you said you sold a group of 6 to Planet Fitness?
Five.
Six? Five
Gyms. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did this? Yeah, Notion. Cool.
Here's the deal with medium box and big box gyms. Very competitive landscape nowadays. But, when you're talking a gym that's 15,000 to 30,000 square feet, you're talking about a $2 million build out and $2 million capital outlay, not to mention the cash reserves that you need to run the marketing and operations and all that stuff.
Like a $5 million startup, basically, if you include.
Yeah, probably back then it was about 3 million. You're paying $30,000 in rent.
I see. So this is not real estate. This is just the business. Yeah.
Yeah. LA Fitness has a difference. So LA Fitness buys the real estate. That's their play, is they buy all those corporate real estate places and then they rent to themselves and then they own the real estate. So it's a double investment, right? It's a McDonald's play. It's a McDonald's play.
It's a McDonald's play, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think Chick-fil-A does that too, I think. I think they also own real estate.
Yeah. And not sure if Starbucks does it, but they should if they do.
I'd be surprised. I see Starbucks.
I feel like probably some of them are. I know most
Maybe
of them are
some.
corporate stores, but I don't know how much they own. Or
So I
if
see.
they do
So
that.
whenever I see a Chick-fil-A, it's standalone. Whenever I see McDonald's, it's standalone.
Yeah.
I feel like 60% of the Starbucks I see are in like leased area. Like they're in
Yeah.
shopping center. Like they look leased, right? Like a Chipotle. Like they're almost never standalone.
Yeah, true. But anyway, so, getting into that and learning the ins and outs of running a gym, running employees, managing all these people and all these systems and processes and the front desk and the software to run things, I kind of got a better idea because my buddy owned it. My buddy was the GM of Gold's Gym on Aurora, which was like the Washington Mecca back in the 90s. And then he was an international franchisor for GGI, Gold's Gym International. And then these guys from the East Coast are the one that got him. They're like, hey, we're going to give you a minority ownership, help us open these gyms in the Northwest. And so my buddy, who I had worked for as a personal trainer in the mid 90s, when he was running the Gold's Gym there, he hit me up and was like, I need you to help me open these gyms. I was like, I got you. And it actually works out because the thing I was going to do, turns out it's not working out anymore. My boss himself. So that was kind of how I got into learning gym operations. Because before that, it was just like I was a trainer. I kind of had a failed attempt at opening a jiu-jitsu gym that really wasn't making any money for 3 years, but I didn't know what I was doing. Now I'd kind of learned the skills and I was in management. I was kind of overseeing trainers, running the group sales, the group memberships, the group, like training that we had there, functional training, boot camps, that sort of thing. And then I was also just personal training there, making 70% of my own book. So the gym would get 30%. I would get 70 of all my PT. I was getting 100% of my group boot camp stuff, and I was selling supplements.
That's
So I had the nice little hustle.
That's nice.
Yeah, but then, the East Coast group, we're going to be here for 30 years. This is a long term. They're like, okay, we're selling the Planet Fitness. We're out. Peace. So that's
okay. So the money, the financial capital, that was coming from an was like a private equity or family office. It
was private equity. There were some guys that owned some Fitness Evolutions in like Baltimore and Maryland. I'm not all sure what states they were in, but that was where the money was coming from. And they built these gyms up in like 3 years, got them up to like 10,000 to 12,000 members. Wrapped them all up and sold them. So they had a great start and exit plan. And that's what you have to learn with these things is like, are you going to own them forever? Do you have an exit plan? What does that look like? What are you going to do afterwards? So, now I'm learning the ins and outs of actually how to run gyms and multiple gyms at that point, because I'm inside of a very successful project and gym that's scaled up, to that many members that fast. In a couple of years, each of those gyms had over 10,000 members. People were just crawling in those gyms.
That's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
how good of a business is the HVLP?
You know
business
what?
model?
The funny thing is all the big gym players, when Planet Fitness came out, they laughed at them. They
Yeah,
laughed.
$10 a month. What are you?
They laughed at the model. They laughed at the colors. They laughed at exactly what they were doing. They're like, what? They're gonna
Or what's it called? Lunk alarm?
Yeah, the lunk alarm. They got laughed by everybody in the industry at the time. And the funny thing is there's to my knowledge, at least about 4 or 5 years ago, there's never been a Planet Fitness that's failed. They all succeed. And there's one guy, he owns a store up by my Marysville store. There's a Planet Fitness up there. There's one guy that owns like most of them. And then there's other groups of people that own little clusters, but it's the fastest, one of the fastest growing chains in the United States. And the thing about it is you know what their model is? We're going to sign up all these people and 2/3 of them aren't going to work out. They're just going to carry their $10 and $20 memberships and not trip on it. The difference between that HVLP model and a model where you want everybody training like a 425 Fitness or EOS or, any of the other ones like the Dragon's Lairs and things like that. They charge more, but they want serious people working out there. Whereas the Planet Fitness is like, we hope that most of you guys don't come because we're just going to keep signing up people, but you're never going to get rid of your membership because you're only paying 10 to 20 bucks a month.
Yeah.
So that is built into that model that most of those people, they know that, because if all those people came to train every day,
It would destroy the gym.
it'd be a shit show. Yeah, it'd be a
It would
shit
destroy
show.
the gym.
So, the industry laughed at them at the time, but they're having the last laugh because they're very successful. They just crank out, revenue. So anyway, at that point, when the fitness evolution thing was over and they sold to Planet Fitness, I needed to make a move. I talked to the owner of Gracie Barra Bellevue, which is my instructor at the time. So when I was working for Riley and working at Fitness Evolution, also working at Biogenesis, I was training Jiu-Jitsu also, right?
For yourself.
And I was training at Gracie Barra Seattle, and the owner who I had working for me way back in the day, I had him teaching classes for me at, Hoff Gracie Ballard. We were in the Ballard Firehouse at the time. He now had Gracie Barra Seattle, right? So I joined the gym, started training. I was working in corporate and then, doing the gym thing. But what happened is one of his business partners wanted out of Gracie Barra Bellevue, and that gave me the opportunity to buy in again. This was late 2013. So starting the beginning of 2014, I bought this guy out of Bellevue, and that's where I've been for the last 11 years. That was my OG gym. So, in ownership again, the second time. First time I was in ownership, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew how to train people and it was my passion. I didn't know gym operations. Now that I had been through this maturation process, I learned what I needed to learn to be successful at the gym. And I took it over. It was a gym that was basically breaking even. I wasn't making any money. I took it over and I 4X'd the revenue in the last 10 years. So what I did is I started strength and conditioning out of it. And I was running the head and strength and conditioning guy. So people that had kids, I was grabbing those moms and getting them to sign up. And I was training them during the day. And then at night when the kids would be training jiu-jitsu, I'd be training the moms and dads on one side. Kids would be training the other, and that's how I kind of built that business up. Is I kind of brought a new element to it.
Had anything changed about the jiu-jitsu business model writ large in that 10-year period between leaving and then coming back?
Yes. So although they weren't completely organized, and now in the last 10 years, they've gotten a lot more organized. They did develop a curriculum. So Gracie Barra, I think, and it's funny because a lot of people consider Gracie Barra the McDonald's of jiu-jitsu because of how many stores they have. They have we have over 1,000 franchises on 5 different continents. Yeah, it's very prevalent. So there's tons of Gracie Barras in Cali and Texas and Florida. And
I didn't realize that. So it's a franchise.
Yeah, we're all franchisees of the parent franchisor, Gracie Barra. But Gracie Barra over the last 10, 11 years has become a lot more organized with what they do, with how they deliver. They've got something called GB Connect. They've got the GB Institute. They've systematized how your instructors are trained. And there's something called GB Online that gives you the curriculum. So anywhere you go in the world, on any given week, on any given day, everybody's training in the same techniques, no matter where you go in the world.
That is pretty cool. I didn't
I
realize it
go to
was that.
Spain, I can go to England, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
doing the same curriculum stuff that I'm doing in my gyms in England, in Spain, in Japan, wherever you're at. So there's that consistency, and that jujitsu didn't used to have that. So they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the curriculum. They weren't training kids. There wasn't a curriculum to train kids. There wasn't a curriculum to train adults. It was just like, here's some good jujitsu guys, and here's the techniques that you need to do to get better, and we'll
Yeah.
help you fight and blah, blah, blah. Now it became a system. Now it became repeatable. Now it became something where, and now most of my gyms, to be honest, I have more kids than I have adults. Whereas it was completely flipped. You know, when I started jujitsu, it was only adults. And now it's like most of my gyms have more kids than adults. So I target families and parents to sign people up more than adults, and kids are better members. If you think of, I don't know if you're a dad yourself,
Yeah.
but if you,
Got three boys.
yeah. So if you talk to any parent, they're going to spend any amount of money they need to do on their kids, right?
Absolutely.
They'll sacrifice their own luxuries and things that they spend their money on to make sure their kids
Hell yeah.
have the training and have the specialized stuff they need. And I think the big message that's gone out is jujitsu builds self-esteem, it builds confidence, it helps with bullying, it helps with introverted kids. So word's getting out that it builds all these things for their kids, and it's better for females, and it's better for law enforcement. It's
Mm-hmm.
better because it's devised for a smaller person to take on bigger attackers and subdue them without hard techniques.
Yeah.
So you can subdue somebody without really hurting them, right? This word has gotten out. I mean, the UFC and Dana White and Joe Rogan have
Joe
done
Rogan, Joe
huge
Rogan,
stuff.
Jocko Willing.
I have people coming into my gyms going, yeah, I was watching this Joe Rogan
Yep.
episode and he was talking about, and I want to get my little son. And I'm thinking, yeah, thank you, Joe.
Absolutely. And it's a status symbol. Let's be honest. Like
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu has elevated from some backstreet brawler to a status symbol. It's like people ski, people golf, they do jiu-jitsu. Like
yeah.
it's
Oh,
elevated for the perception of it.
and it is what we found with jujitsu and the jujitsu practitioner. It's not for everybody, but people that try jujitsu, when that jujitsu bug bites, it's a lifestyle.
I watch a lot online. Two of my favorite fitness influencers, if you will,
Yeah.
they're both jiu-jitsu guys. I mean, Mike
Yeah.
Rizzatelli of RP, and then
Mhm.
and Sima Inyang, part of Mark Bell's Power Project. They're
Yeah.
both huge jiu-jitsu practitioners.
Yeah. So I met a guy who's the third most popular Instagram jujitsu guy in the world. So the two people that are the top jujitsu guys in the world, like Gordon Ryan, and then there's whoever one of the top world's guy is right now. And then this guy, his name is Matt Arroyo. He's out of Tampa Bay in Florida. Ex-UFC guy. So he's UFC's like in his early or mid 40s now, but he's really popularized what he's done. And he has like an online training academy and that whole thing. But he's made jujitsu, like he's got this crazy following because he's mastered, content and delivery of content, and he's selling systems and stuff. And plus he's just he's a smart jujitsu guy. I've learned from him. I met him at a Bedros Keuilian live event last year.
Nice.
Little BK Live in Arizona. I got to kind of chop it up with him about retention strategies and kind of how to build systems and processes in your school to keep people, because our biggest problem is, if you get 10 people trying jujitsu, one or two of them, that jujitsu bug bites hard and they're never leaving, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you have a lot of churn and a lot of attrition. Whereas like a Planet Fitness, you sign up, you never quit, right? But
Mhm.
jujitsu, if you're not training and you're paying $200 a month, you're not going to keep that membership.
Yeah.
You'll keep a $10 to $20 membership, right? Whether you're working out or not. But a
Just
jujitsu membership's a little different because it is more expensive. They are all group ran, instructor ran classes. So either a coach who's ICP certified or a head instructor, and they all have to be ICP certified. So that's just their certification that Gracie Barra has. So they updates you with all the updated, like how you teach the curriculum, how you teach kids, how you teach adults, how you teach self-defense, competition classes, how you teach everything. But also there's like a background check that they have to do every year
on the coaches.
on the coaches. And that's part of the certification process, which I really like because, you don't always know who you're hiring or somebody's background or stuff. But, this vets people, And if, they have anything pop up, they're not going to be training at your school, which I can't say all the jiu-jitsu affiliations out there do that sort of thing. I know they don't have those certifications where they check people for that.
Yeah, well, that's important to protect your brand, especially when you're dealing with kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Protect your brand, protect your business, protect your members, you know what I mean? There's a lot of
Yeah.
people and then it also protects the instructors because it gives them a way to teach. Like for instance, they tell you when you're teaching, if you're teaching kids or if you're teaching a female, you always need a third party there to watch just in case because you don't want to be any bad predictors. So it's just little
You're in very
nuance.
close quarters.
Yeah. So little nuanced things like that, which you're not going to get with every affiliation, but Gracie Barra has done just a bang up job with that. And they're growing in their knowledge. I wouldn't say they're on par with the big national chains yet as far as systems and processes, but they're getting better.
Who are the biggest chains in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu concept space?
You've got Checkmat, you've
Okay.
got Atos, you've got, there's a lot of different branches of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You've got Hickson Gracie, you've got Henner, and you've got the Gracie Combatives, which is its own system they kind of are more heavily on self-defense. You got Henzo Gracie. So you have a lot of Gracie-based names, but Checkmat and Atos, there's a couple more. I can't remember. GFT, I think, is one. Also, Carlson Gracie still has a big affiliation, Carlson Gracie team. So yeah, there's a group of about a dozen, half a dozen. There's a dozen affiliations. What is that one? Starts with an A. I can't remember. Alliance. Sorry, Alliance is a big one too. So yeah, there's a lot of them are upping up their games with kids and females, and a lot of them are starting to kind of fall in line with the curriculums and the systems like Gracie Barra. I think Gracie Barra was one of the first ones to do it. Implement these systems and processes for running a business and for running a program and for, signing up people and the operations behind it. But, I feel like when you're talking about brands like Planet Fitness and established brands like Gold's Gym and EOS and Lifetime Fitness and 2-4 Anytime Fitness, those are the big boys, those are the ones that, they have. And they're starting $2 to $5 million gyms all the time. Problem is there's a lot of competition there now too. And there's a lot of competition, you'll have several gyms in a 5-mile radius of each other. And some of my gyms have a lot of jiu-jitsu competition, but not like the big box gyms. There's lots of big bites. It's just a competitive market.
Do you know John Hamilton at 425?
I do. So he was originally a Gold's Gym guy, and I actually work out. I train somebody and work out at his 425 Bothell gym, and he owns Issaquah, Redmond, and Bothell. And those all used to be Gold's gyms, and he turned them into 425 fitnesses and very successful gyms. I actually am going to be modeling a lot of what I do operations-wise kind of after what he's doing, because he does some very successful business practices with his gyms that a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms don't implement. And I actually run the same software system now in 3 of my gyms, not my oldest gym, the one I'm selling out of, but they run on a system called ABC Fitness is their merchant software. And at one time, his Redmond gym was the top grossing ABC, used to be ABC Financial, now it's ABC Fitness. It was a top grossing ABC Fitness gym in the country.
Wow. Is ABC Fitness, is that a mind body competitor?
Yes. Yeah. And I've ran Mind Body before too in one of my gyms. Mind Body's better for spas and salons and things like
Yoga.
that. Yeah. Yoga.
CrossFit. I know a lot of CrossFitters use Mind Body as well.
But, we're all upping our game. We're all trying to leverage kind of where computing is going these days. You got AI that's factoring in a lot of different businesses and how we operate businesses. And
How so?
so with AI and quantum computing, and the only people that are using quantum computing right now are the big boys. So when you talk about Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, so quantum computing will predict a lot of things. It will assume a lot of things. It will track your target customer, and it knows your behaviors. It knows the people that are most likely to be prospects for you and that you can sign up based on their demographics. If they have kids, they have a certain household income, where they're cruising, where they're like, it's crazy. I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you. Have you ever talked about something and
Yes,
then those things will pop up on your phone?
hell yeah, man.
Like
They're
you'll,
always listening, man. They're always
it's always
listening.
listening. So
Yeah.
there's a
Even when it's off, unless the
reason
battery's
off.
dead or removed, it's
Yeah.
listening.
That's an example of how we're being tracked. And it's tracking it tracks where your phone drives to. So
Mhm.
it knows where you're going. It knows where you're spending your time. It knows where you're spending your money, right? So with that, they're trying to leverage and they're figuring out. I've got a buddy that owns, so Chris Finch, the guy that was at GGI that I helped open the Fitness Evolutions, now owns a company called V. This is done through one of the credit bureaus, but they can predict, they can look at all your members and they can predict how likely they are to cancel and how likely you are to get other people that like a lookalike to your member, people in that area and what they're doing. And it follows them around and you can target them to get them into your gym. It's crazy. But that's where it's going. That's where it's going right now. So conversational AI is when you have a lead or a prospect, it can
Nurture.
talk to you and nurture. So whenever somebody calls, whenever somebody submits an email, whenever it can talk to you, it can answer questions based on your industry. It has to learn and you have to teach it. But after a while, like I could model a voice after me and I could sit and teach. So that's kind of where this, and a lot of people don't know this play. A lot of people don't know this in gym operating. It is the future of where everything is going. And quantum computing and AI, it kind of gets a little scary with what it can do because it can figure out a lot more stuff than I think we even want figured out right now. Like, who knows where it's going? But all I
Yeah.
know is like, so how I run gyms right now, I have teams of VAs. Philippines, I have a social media team. I got a head admin VA. I got a messaging VA. So we use these teams to like create content, to message people, to get people in the gyms.
What does VA stand for?
Virtual assistant.
Virtual assistant. Okay.
I
Thanks.
used to have this all done with my program directors, but what happens is program directors just can't do everything. Not across, you can get a superstar every once in a while that does everything, but most likely, these and when I say program director, I'm meaning like a manager, like a front desk person at your gym, but a front desk person at a jiu-jitsu gym, you have to sell a membership. When I was at Fitness Evolution, we would sign up 20 to 30 people a day because they're coming in, they're like, sign me up. It's a $10 membership. So we would have people there that just sell them those $10 and $20 memberships all day.
Yeah.
Multiple people working. In our model, you're selling something because if they have like 2 or 3 family members, now we're talking like 3, 4, upwards of $500 for a family. And that's a sales process. It's not somebody just, oh yeah, I'm ready to pay. You basically have to explain it and sell it.
It's a little higher ticket.
It's
Yeah.
a little higher ticket. So that's where AI can come into play, is it can augment what we're doing in that sales cycle, that sales process where it can set up a sale for you. And right now, my VAs close a lot of people online. Somebody will come in midday or in the morning and work out, and my VA will sign them up virtually. I mean, they try the class, they go in and do the trial.
The free. Yeah.
Coach facilitates, liability waiver getting signed and the uniform that they put on. But then after the trial, my VAs hit them up and are like, hey, what'd you think? You want to sign up? And they give them maybe they incentivize them with a little free something or other to do it virtually. And then we collect their signatures either through a PDF or they come into the gym and they sign their signatures, for the whatever the contract is and whatever they're buying. And if they're buying uniforms and in addition to their contracts and stuff like that. So I think a lot of this conversational wise, you don't miss any low hanging fruit. Like,
Yeah. It
you're not
sounds
gonna
very
miss-
efficient.
yeah, because manually and not like if you just have let's just say you have a front desk person, like a program director, or a manager, and they start at 4 p.m. or they start at 3 p.m. or whatever. When they're there, they get busy. They get busy with intros. They get busy with kids. They get busy with members and member needs and little Johnny threw up or, can you get me, he forgot his belt or this or that. They're not able to sit and field calls all night because they're
Yeah,
working.
you're losing money.
Yeah. So what I know is a bottleneck for what I do is how can I pre-sale people, sign them up virtually, have a conversation with them, answer all their questions, and not rely on my program director to do all that. Because most program directors, they're too busy. They may train jiu-jitsu themselves. They got whatever they're doing during the day. It would just be better to have this on autopilot. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and then you talk about the marketing aspect. You got to have SEO, you have paid, you got organic, you got referrals, you got a lot of different ways to bring in people. The more funnels you have, the better, right? So you can't just have one. You can't just do paid ads, or you can't just sit on your ass and do organic and think, if I build it, they will come. No, they won't.
No,
They'll
there's too
come and then
many
they'll
options.
quit. You got to tease people and incentivize people, and you got to engage people that you're going to solve their problem. You have to let people know that they have a problem first, and that you're the one that can solve it. So the problem that, we like to solve is self-defense. We're going to train your kids. We're going to give them this, that, and the other thing. This is how they're going to benefit. And then they're thinking, my kid does need that. They do need this in their life, and they are getting bullied at school, or they are on their device too much of the day, and we want them to do something physical. Oh, we want them to learn a self-defense so they can defend themselves. Let's face it, society and environment in these cities, things aren't getting any safer, and things aren't getting safer for law enforcement. Things ain't getting safer across the board. I feel like if you're a child and you're learning up and you don't learn confidence, you don't learn some kind of a self-defense, you don't learn how to defend yourself physically and verbally, and you're not being taught that in your formative years, I feel like you're behind a gun as an adult now, and you're a little bit more vulnerable. I don't sell those scare tactics, but I mean, let's be real, homelessness is a problem. Society is a problem. When I grew up, we got on our BMXs and we rode, and we came home when the lights came on. At night, and we would go to and from school. I lived in Missouri for a couple years when I was in first and second grade. My parents didn't get off work till after school was out. They got off work at like 5. School got out at 3. I used to walk my ass home every day, but it was safe to do so. Like, we were cool. It's a different time now, right? So you have to learn these skills. You have to teach your kids these skills, and I feel like it helps on. They're finding that, like, kids that they've been doing lots of big studies. Kids that train jiu-jitsu get into less trouble. They're less distractible. They act up a lot less because they have that discipline in their life. That's one of the things that our professors and instructors teach kids, is to mind their parents, to be good citizens, to help others, to defend themselves when needed, to not use it for bad reasons. You don't use this stuff and go beat up people. You don't choke people out. But if someone puts hands on you and is threatening you, you defend yourselves. You tell them no. Like, we have entire platforms where in my Marysville gym, we're starting something next week where we've devoted a class for kids ages 7 and up just for self-defense and anti-bullying. And we have 2 professors running it because it's a big deal for people. It's a big deal for parents, and parents understand that their kids are growing up in a different environment than
they did. Yeah. I want to come back to the growth of your operation, and then I want to talk through how you manage it and where you want to take it. So going from the Bellevue location, how did Tacoma, Marysville, and Renton come online for you?
So yeah, when I had Bellevue, I had a bright idea that I wanted to open another gym. I was looking at areas. And I used to live in Gig Harbor from 7th grade to 10th, my sophomore year in high school. So I was familiar with the South Puget Sound, and our farthest South gym was Federal Way at that point, as far as the Gracie Barra franchises go. And Tacoma's such a big community. I think like Tacoma and Bellevue are kind of like neck and neck cities. Bellevue's probably got more, maybe even the population's higher in Bellevue now, but Tacoma's a big city, and we didn't have a gym there. And so I took it upon myself in 2017, the beginning of 2017, I started looking, and I found a place that I found a big gym that I could open out of. It was actually something called Fit Republic. We had a deal with the guys. I kept a certain amount of money. They ran all the stuff through the front desk, and they would give me money, and then I didn't have to pay rent, or I didn't have to pay utilities. I operated in a room, and they took part of the cut. It was like 65-35. So I kept 65% and they kept 30. So as my business grew, they would get more money and I still would have no expenses, right? So of course I had to buy the mat, the signage, pay payroll and get people going. But I jumped on that. I jumped on the opportunity. And these are guys that I met through my fitness evolution days, big box gym guys, right? I did that and I was I was over by the mall, the Tacoma Mall, which is kind of South Tacoma. And what happened is they started screwing me on the money. They started charging me all these extra fees, not giving me my 65%. They would give me a lot less. And I just had a 60-day agreement with them. So if you put in notice, you could bounce in 2 months. And when it became unworkable with them, I started looking for other places. I was looking over in North Central Tacoma and I found a place in Fircrest, a little mom and pop landlord. And it's over by, I don't know if University Place, over by the water. It's very affluent, real nice neighborhood. Kind of the homelessness doesn't get in there a whole lot. They keep really good track of everything in Fircrest. So it was actually a blessing in disguise that I found that. So 2017, I opened it on my son's birthday, October 23rd, 2017. The end of 2018 is when I had the falling out with Fit Republic. And I found the space the beginning of 2019 in Fircrest, and it grew exponentially for me when I moved to that new area. And it got to the point, we had a little hiccup a year later, obviously with the pandemic. So then the pandemic hits. So, and I've got Bellevue and I've got Tacoma, and you're navigating this pandemic, and, you can't run your gyms. You can't keep charging people. You basically had to shut down and kind of weather the storm. So that put things on hold for a while. But then at the tail end of 2021, we still had lots of restrictions of the pandemic. But I said to myself, nobody's starting a business right now, which is the exact reason why I should. So when everybody goes one direction, a lot of the top entrepreneurs tell you to go the other way.
Yeah.
And that's what investors do, the top people. So I took that kind of thought process and I said, you know what? And I'd bought in the Renton location and franchise prior to the pandemic happening. So I owned Gracie Barra Renton. Somebody started it and didn't succeed with it. And so I bought that franchise from them thinking I was going to open it before the pandemic. And funny story is, a lot of people don't know this. I found a spot in downtown Renton, was about 2 weeks away from signing the lease. I had the lease in front of me. I had a business partner that was going to open it with me that wasn't involved in jiu-jitsu. And I, for some reason, hesitated. Like my gut told me to hesitate, and I didn't sign it right away. And then I got word of this I was actually down in Mexico kicking it with my girlfriend when we got word of the pandemic. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to open another gym right now. And so I told the landlords, hey, we're going to have to shelve this. I'm going to have to pass on this deal right now. And it was just weird that my gut, I always have this strong intuitive thing. My gut tells me when and not to make moves a lot of times. And it's whether I listen to it or not has always been my story.
So you didn't know about the pandemic yet. You just had this inkling, this premonition.
I just had a feeling. And then I was in Mexico and I was going to come back and sign the lease. And in Mexico, it jumped off. That was like early March or something, I think that. Yeah. I was in Mexico and everybody was tripping out. Like, you don't want to stay out of the country too long. You may not be able to come back because they may shut down. And I was like, oh shit, we got to go back. So obviously the gym got sidelined at that point, but what happened is everybody sat on their ass for a year and a half, right? Then at the tail end of 2021, we still had restrictions in Tacoma and Bellevue where they somehow wanted you to stay 6 feet away and train jiu-jitsu. I don't know how that worked. But they're like, you had to wear a mask, you had to keep 6 feet. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, you're not giving us a business. If you're telling us to do that, jiu-jitsu, we can't do it. So at that point, when the restrictions, gyms were opening back up, right? Mm-hmm. This was like mid to late 2021. They kind of were dipping back and forth for a minute, and then they opened back up. And I
hated those days. I hated going.
But there was restrictions too, right? Like, you had to go in with a mask. You had to go with your freaking card everywhere you ate, and you've been vaccinated and all this more shit.
Forgot about that. Oh man.
And I got vaccinated because I'm a gym owner in Seattle and I got boosted once. I'll never get vaccinated again. And I'll do my polio and diphtheria and the tetanus and all that shit, but I'm not ever doing a flu shot again. Every
No,
time I
I
do the
haven't
flu
either.
shot, I get sick. I get a viral infection. I don't know what it is. Every time I've tried, and they're always trying to push this shit on you. But I'm not doing any more vaccinations. In fact, I wish I wouldn't have even done it in the first place, because I got COVID before I even got a vaccination anyway. I got sick in January of 2020. No, maybe it was Christmas. It was Christmas prior.
Oh, 2019.
2019, I got sick over that holiday. So before the vaccines even came out and were a thing, I got COVID. It hurt. It didn't feel good, but I got through it. And then all the rigmarole was like, oh, if you're a gym owner, or if you want to go out and eat, or if you want to do anything, you got to get vaccinated. But anyway, sorry to jump on my soapbox about that.
I remember those. I remember those days.
Yeah.
I almost forgot. I forgot
Yeah.
about carrying the little card with you.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, I had them in my phone. There was like the first vaccination, the second, then your boosters. You had to like flip
Right.
through them. I remember
Right,
that.
right. So now, I said, you know what? Everybody's dipping. We need to dap. So let's open this gym. We opened it up the beginning of October 2021. There were still restrictions. You still had to wear masks and all this stuff. But my theory was, if I open this gym now, everybody's so tired of sitting on their asses. People are going to be begging to get into gyms. It's going to be easy signing people up. And that's
And was it?
exactly what happened. We got to profitability in that gym in like after 13 or 14 months.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which
That's fast.
yeah, it's pretty fast. Most gyms mature. There's a 3 to 5 year maturation process of becoming a new gym into a mature gym. And typically it's past that 36-month point that you're a mature gym.
Is that for boutique, or is that for
Everything.
HPLP? For
Across the
everything.
board. Yeah. Doesn't matter what gym you have. It takes a minimum of 3 years to kind of, become a veteran gym, so to speak. So that gym scaled up fast. And then I was, a year later, I was like, let me do another one. And that's when I started Marysville in 2022. Marysville's been a little bit different of a story. My workhorse has always been Tacoma. Renton's done really well. Bellevue's scaled up. I went ahead and opened Marysville in a more rural area.
Yeah, that's quite a distance away.
My thought was, we've got all these gyms from Bothell to Tacoma. I either need to go north or south on I-5, right? So it was either do Olympia or Lacey, or go to Marysville and Arlington, and then maybe Bellingham, and then maybe do Lacey or Olympia and move south, right? So that was the areas to develop. I opened Marysville with a brown belt kid training. I call him a kid. He was a man. Anybody that's younger, people are in their early 20s, I call kids. So I opened it with a brown belt. The guy kind of figured it out that he didn't want to run a school after about a year's time. And I was teaching, I was getting student teachers up to help me, but nobody wants to drive up from the Seattle area up to Marysville. But anyway, I had a lot of turnover. So my instructor left. My Bang Muay Thai instructor left. I did get a new instructor in place. Now I have 2 professors there. One that's a former Hickson Gracie black belt, one that's Checkmat originally black belt. Both have their ICPs now. So I opened Marysville, but it's been a little bit different. We're not quite at 3 years yet, but we're right at the point where it's profiting. But it hasn't been a meteoric rise like Tacoma and Renton. But it's also, I've learned a lot in business, because when you have adversity and when you have turnover and when you got coaches coming in and coming out and you can't hold anybody, employees for various different reasons, then all of a sudden in business, shit gets real for you. And the thing that I like about it is it's teaching me kind of that life lesson that, like, when you open 3 or 4, 5 gyms and help people open other gyms, they're not all going to be home runs, but what are you going to do to turn that into a profitable gym, right? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? How are you going to overcome that obstacle? And I've put all the right things in motion, things in place. I don't know if that gym will ever be like a Tacoma or a Renton. And kind of the gold standard in small gyms, which I'm shooting for, is getting to the 7-figure run rate. So that's my goal right now. I don't know if Marysville will ever be a 7-figure run rate. You need probably 500 plus members to be at the 7-figure run rate. When I say 7-figure run rate, I say gross revenues of 83.33 $100,000 a month,
1 million.
1 million per year. That is the gold standard of boutique gyms. Not a lot of boutique gyms ever hit that. You might have some Soul Cycles in New York and Chicago, and maybe some Orange Theory Fitnesses operate at that level. There's a couple Gracie Barras. Professor Rodrigo Carvalho up in Vancouver has had over 800 members. Professor Dracolino down in Webster, Texas, very successful gyms. He built a from scratch gym down there, built his own property, and he's killing it down there. He has kids, he's got adults, he's got Muay Thai, he's got all kinds of different programs. He's got this just beautiful gym. So the better gyms can hit that 7-figure run rate and most of them are ran by very passionate single owner type operations. I'm not one of those because I'm not in teaching at my gyms. I was teaching in Bellevue, running the strength and conditioning, but when I open gyms 2 and 3, I can't run around and chase my tail and train people in all gyms. So I have to hire other people to do it, and getting other people to kind of like run it how you would, or how like Professor Rodrigo Carvalho or Professor Dracolino in Texas. Those guys are in their gyms, running their gyms, making them successful because of their passion and because of their presence, right? My goal is to be able to do that and run these successful gyms without me even being there, right?
How do you do that? So describe your role and how you incentivize boots on the ground to stick to your mission.
One of the things that you have to do is you got to bring up your employees, and you have to give them almost like you're working for them. They're not working for you. You have to empower them. You have to incentivize them. One of the things that I did for years is we were paying program directors like normal front desk staffs, pay them 18 to 20 bucks an hour, right? What I'm finding out now is if you pay somebody a little bit more and maybe give them some commissions, maybe give them, incentivize them like your growth is their growth, then, they're going to be a little bit more invested in that growth process. And you're developing a community, you're developing a culture and a community within that framework, right? So that's the trick, is how can I plug and play a community and culture in different places? It's not as easy as it sounds. And it takes a lot of work. It takes time. It takes empowering some people and having people see your vision. And so that's kind of my philosophy and how I've done it, and making mistakes along the way. You learn from your mistakes and learn from doing the same things over and over again, inspecting different results. So, the thing that I like about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is it breeds this passionate instruction and passionate members, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to get that at a lot of regular gyms. You're going to get people that work out and get really into their workout and their bodies, and they're like, this is empowering. One of the things that I think is great is females in fitness. When I was in high school, it was just us guys that wanted to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we were working out for football. None of the girls, even the girls playing tennis and soccer, and they ran, but that was maybe did some crunches. They weren't working out. There was no females working out. Now there's this like big presence of everybody's got to get in shape, and the benefits of getting in shape, and the benefits of,
building muscle.
Building muscle, keeping muscle, daily activities of daily living. As you get older, the number one reason people start falling and breaking stuff is they're losing muscle.
They don't lift heavy things. Yeah.
They don't lift heavy things. So I have been kind of on a mission for the last 30 years to teach people how to eat, to teach people how to work out, to teach people how to strengthen their bodies, strengthen their resolve, strengthen what I like to call intestinal fortitude, which is that unshakable belief in yourself to be able to do things. And I take that into my entrepreneurship as well.
Share with me then the grand vision for Greg Jones Industries. I'll just colloquially, so not just the Gracie Barra, but where you want to take Gracie Barra, but then any other things you're doing on the side, any other business holdings or coaching that you do. You mentioned some of it in your interview with Shannon that you did maybe a year ago. I watched that.
So I did team up with, I've got a couple mentors right now. I'm probably going to be moving forward with a personal mentor called Dan Martell. He's a Silicon Valley guy, personal self-growth guy, $100 million a year type successful entrepreneur just over the border in Canada. I've also teamed up with Bedros Keuilian and something called the Legacy Tribe. Jason Redman, Bryce Henson, who is the CEO of Fit Body Boot Camp. Jason Redman is a Navy SEAL that runs like self-growth and development and runs this Legacy Tribe with Bedros and Bryce. And Bedros Keuilian, you know, he's got supplement company, he's got a clothing company, he's got Fit Body Boot Camp. So he does small boutique gyms and he franchises them. I think for me, opening a lot more successful gyms and learning how to get these things plug and play and learning how to systematize everything that you do. So standard operating procedures, marketing, you know, what does that look like? What do your sales look like? What do your operations look like? Everything needs to be a system, right? Once I build those systems, you can open more and more gyms, or you can plan an exit and then license something. So I've thought about licensing. I've thought about, I'm going to be developing my personal brand this year. And I've been playing around with my personal brand for years. The Coach Greg Jones brand is I train people online. I'm going to do something. I'm probably going to be teaming up with Bedros in this program called the Squire program. So right now it's training middle-aged guys and telling guys that they need to step up for themselves, to step up for them, for their families. But also it's a rite of passage for the teenage son with the father to go through this and learn how to become a man. And it's basically learning how to be a servant, a protector, a provider, how being an alpha male is not, there shouldn't be a negative connotation with being an alpha male. Being an alpha male doesn't mean you need to be a chauvinist pig, right? But it does mean that you are the provider, you're the protector, you have to serve people, serve your family, serve yourself, and you have to lead from the front. You have to not only lead your family, you have to lead your son, you have to lead your daughter. You have to lead people to be able to be successful themselves. And I think what a lot of guys have done, they get married and they have kids and they fall back. They fall back on themselves. They don't show up for themselves. And then they let this agenda raise and teach, you know, and kind of like influence their kids where like masculinity is toxic. You know, being an alpha male is toxic. Well, what do you mean? And then what is a gender? I feel like these days gender roles and like what gender even is a little bit bent, and we're bending that narrative. And I feel like we should straighten it out. And I feel like the first thing we do is to teach our sons how to be that alpha male. So I'm going to concentrate in my personal brand in teaching not only guys to show up for themselves, because if a guy doesn't show up for himself, and I get this all the time, and I feel like there's a quiet desperation of middle-aged guys out there. And they come to me and they go, well, I used to be an athlete and I used to do this and I used to bench this amount of weight and I was in shape. And well, then what happened? Well, then I got married and then I had kids and then so you're not working out anymore? No, I can't work out. I got too busy. I'm taking my kids, my schedule, my this. They give you every excuse under the sun to why they're not taking care of themselves and leading their family from the front. And I got a problem with that. And I'm drawing my line in the sand that, guys, you don't have to live this damn quiet life of quiet desperation anymore. Step up for yourself. Step up for your family. You don't think your wife or significant other or girl, whoever you have is not going to respect you stepping up for yourself? You got to make the time. You got to prioritize yourself. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here a little bit, but
there's some passion here. This matters.
Yeah, it does matter. Yeah. The problem is I've been stuck in the weeds in my gym. I had a failed attempt at hiring a COO a little over a year ago to kind of get myself out of the gym operations and insert somebody into the gym operations so I can work on my personal brand a little bit more, but it didn't work. So kind of back, I'm a little bit more stuck in the weeds. I'm trying to develop people, to develop teams to be able to do what I do. And right now I do lots of the back end stuff. So I work with the VA teams. I work with the social media team. I work with the paid ad guys. I shoot videos for the ads that we do. I work with the accountants and the bookkeepers and the Department of Revenue and Labor and Industries and payroll. And so I do all the back end stuff and this strategizing and running reports and keeping reports of key performance indicators. You got to get data of everything. Like if you don't have data, you can't manage what you can't measure. If you don't measure, you can't manage. And this is from the top down, the top entrepreneur. You talk to Tony Robbins, Andy Frisella, Dana White, like all these top entrepreneurs, you have to have these systems. You have to be able to manage data. So, it's taken me a while to learn all this, but I've learned it. And now it's about putting all these leverage new pieces together with the things that I've learned to kind of go to the next level. And where that takes me, to be honest, I don't know where it's going to take me. I can't prognosticate, I'm going to be here in 5, because everything you do takes longer than you think it will.
It's more
Being
expensive and
successful,
slower than you
my
expect.
Marysville gym is a prime example.
Yeah.
My business partner and I have been putting money into that for 3 years, and that's just part of the deal. It doesn't always work exactly how you want it to and how you plan it, but better make it work.
How much of that do you think is a population thing? I just looked up. So Marysville has a population of 73,000 versus Tacoma 223,000. And I looked up Bellevue a little bit ago because I was just doing research for myself. About 150,000.
Yeah.
So it's a much smaller population, probably less affluent. I don't know.
Less affluent. Yeah. I mean, obviously Bellevue is going to, and Tacoma being around UP and Fircrest is going to have a higher household income than, and Renton's decent because it's got Newcastle and it's got some nice areas on Lake Washington down there in the Renton area. But you need the demographics, you need the people, you need the volume. I don't know how many more rural gyms I want to start again. It's just harder picking people, because what I've found is when you run ads and when you run the same ads, same ad spend, same SEO push, and you do the same stuff, but you have 4 different gyms, you're going to get 4 different results. Things aren't uniform. But what I do know over the data that I've collected over these 4 gyms over the last 11 years is there's some trends and there's some things you can look at, and you can see that a higher density area is going to be probably a little bit more profitable. That's not to say that you can't run a profitable thing in a rural area. I just don't think it's going to scale as fast, and you better have the right people in the right seats.
And it might just be a different business model. I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% accurate on this, but that was one of Anytime's early differentiators when they were coming up, was they were targeting these rural kind of off-market locations because of their small footprint and pretty low overhead. I mean, they had to build out, right?
Yeah. I expanded Tacoma in 2023. I took on an additional 2,200 square foot. I had 4,200 square feet, and I took on an extra 2,200. Now I have 6,400 square feet, but I pay a little over 13,500 for that. And Renton, we pay 12 grand, paying 8 grand in Marysville for 4,200 square feet. Bellevue, we're now paying 10 grand. Our new lease is 10 grand. It had been 7, 8 grand forever. But things are changing. And here's the thing. Every year you see the 3 to 4% increase in your lease, right?
Yeah.
Then you got inflation, cost of doing business is more. What you spend for rent, for utilities, for what you're buying, all your supplies, that goes up. So if you don't get better, if you don't sign and keep more people and maybe change your pricing a little bit.
You have to change your pricing. You have to.
You have to change. You have to get people on longer term contracts. That increases your enterprise value. So, I don't think the month to month is the best way. Some people are just going to want to do month to month. But if you can get people on 4 and 6 and 12 month contracts, that's going to increase. If you ever do go to sell, you have people on contracts. The question investors would ask you, if you have everybody month to month, well, if you sell this business to me, what's going to keep them here? Why wouldn't they just follow you if you go open one down the street, even if you sign an NDA? But, at any rate, you want to see that contractual obligations of, I'm going to be bringing in 50K of revenues from these people for the next 12 months or the next 6 months or half a year. And this is the longevity. And this is, what we've done in the past.
What's the annual average churn? They'll want to see that, right? What's your marketing spend? Yeah.
Yeah. Lifetime value, what a member's worth to you from start to finish, how that differs from gym to gym, kids to adults, you got to crunch all that data. And everything from even when people come into your gym, the booking rate, the show rate, the conversion rate, how much does it cost to acquire, cost per acquisition, your CPA. You got to track all that stuff, man. You got to track all that stuff.
I know we're almost at time. I do have a few more questions for you though. How attractive do the margins get? So let's say it takes about 3 years for a new facility to mature.
Yeah.
At that mature stage, are we talking 10% margins, 30% margins? What would you say is like, okay, this business is all rocking and rolling? Like
Yeah.
not off the charts, but also not failing. Like what are we talking about?
So the oldest gym pre-pandemic was always 30% margin. So we'd always, make that. Now it's a little bit higher and it's going to be like more around 40.
And this is net. This isn't your gross margin. This is your net margin.
Yeah. So like, for instance, you bring in 500 grand, you make 200 grand,
Great. Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then, the goal, my business partner's like, if we have 5 of these making 10 to 15 a month profit, it's great. My goal is to get these making 20 to 40 grand profit. And I've seen some $20,000 and $25,000 net profit months. It's shared over business owners, but you'll see that. And the goal is to get it at that level. That way these market disruptions and inflation and cost of living and all this stuff going up doesn't affect you as much. But I also feel like the economy plays in part. I feel like I already feel a better confidence in the economy right now. I'm feeling the switch from the election. I think 2024 was a little bit of a downtick year economically. I think a lot of people were feeling the pain of the cost of living, housing, everything. And we saw a little bit of that in the business at times, but I feel like the consumer confidence is coming back a little bit, maybe. And that's just my gut kind of. We don't really know how 2025 is going to pan out yet, but just kind of watching the turnaround from November, December into the new year, I'm encouraged. Maybe I'm getting a little bit better at doing what I do. I've kind of figured out what my bottlenecks are, and I'm trying to stay laser focused. The thing I don't want to do is I don't want to spread myself too thin. I'd love to start a clothing line, right? I'd like to get more into real estate. I'd like to develop my personal brand, but until I get these gyms right exactly where I want them, I kind of want to stay laser focused on that.
I think it's the right decision. I mean, you have something there that's probably harder to do than a competitor wanting to start a clothing line, right? I mean, running gyms is hard. Running multiple gyms where they don't rely on you is very valuable and harder.
Harder.
And once you develop that skill and those SOPs, I mean, you could take that in so many directions. Like not only could you sell those gyms, but you could go bigger, right?
Right. That's the thing is when you go to exit, and I learned this through the Fitness Evolution to Planet Fitness exit, when you're selling one gym, you have a 3 to 4 to 1 multiple, right? So if that gym profits 100, 200 grand, you're going to, if you sell it, your enterprise value is 2 to 3 times amount what you're netting. Now, if you sell 5 gyms, you're now talking like a 5 to 6 to 1 multiple. If you have double digit gyms, 12 to 15, you're talking like a 7 to 1 multiple. Because
the wealth compounds. It's exponential.
It's proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of players that will absorb whatever you got in the industry. My buddy that owns V now, there's no shortage of Wall Street money and big players that want to gobble stuff up. And that's kind of what the trend of business anyway is, the big guy swallowing up the little guy. That's why Facebook bought Instagram and, why Google's buying all what they've bought and, and along down the line. So that's my goal. I don't exactly know. There's a couple different directions, right? I just want to grow and keep growing. And I have to stay focused because it's easy, got a lot of distractions. I got 2 kids that live in 2 different states. So I've got out-of-state parenting plans, not the most cooperative of parenting scenarios with those. So you have those minor distractions. You got to keep focused. And that's been tough, but it's also what you always have to work on. And that's what I try to teach people in fitness and bettering themselves. Focus on you, man. You can't control anybody else, what anybody else says, all the external factors, but you can control how you react to any external factor happening to you, and how you control your attitude, how you control how you respond, and then what you do. Like, what do you double down on? Do you double down on being scared? Do you double down on the things that they're going to better your lifestyle, like your healthy habits, getting up early, getting your sleep, eating clean, spending time with the family, working on yourself? Because When I work on myself and I'm the better version of me and I'm the better version to my businesses, everything around it grows. You know, the more you shell up and live this quiet desperation, that's my message kind of the day, and to guys and to people in general. The more you kind of just shell up, don't have the accountability for yourself, because accountability equals responsibility, right? So if you make yourself accountable, you're going to be more responsible for it. And that's like, it's from the top down. Everybody says it. There's a reason why these people have these enterprises, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I'm nowhere near some of these enterprises of the people I aspire to, but they all tell you, you need to be the low guy in the totem pole in that circle if you want to get to that circle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that in athletics as well. I mean, the biggest gains are when you're the worst in the group, and then you get better.
Right. You level up.
You level up. Yeah. It's that low ego, like humility with ambition. When you mix ambition with humility, it's a very powerful combination.
But what happens is that holds a lot of people back.
Which part? Do you think it's the lack of ambition or the low or the high ego that holds people back?
I think it's ego. I think it's their fear of failure.
Yeah.
I feel like until you win and start stacking little wins, people think that they're just normally going to lose. Or if they think about risks, it's so far down the line from what they can imagine happening that they talk themselves out of it.
Yeah. One thing I've observed, I think people don't realize how little people give a fuck about what you're doing.
They don't. Nobody does.
No one cares.
We're a grain of sand in time. 100 years from now, is anybody going to give a
no one
what you said or what you did or what?
Yeah.
Why are you caring about that content you're putting out?
Yeah. The blessing of being tiny is no one's watching you.
Right.
Right. And so as you get better, you will, like, this is something I even had a hurdle I had to get over when starting this pod, was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. But it's no, listen, you have this passion. Yeah. Just do it. People will start watching as it gets good. So don't worry about being bad at first. Yeah. Like, you'll stack the little wins, as you said.
The little wins. Right. But anyway, man, that's my message, man. That's where it's been. That's where it's going. That's my deal. So onward and upward into this year. I have nothing but, high hopes and high expectations, and I have unreasonable expectations of myself and people.
It's awesome.
Unreasonable expectations. I put those on myself. So I feel that's the only way you're going to really flourish.
Greg, it's been a pleasure. I hope we stay in contact.
Yeah.
And we'll talk again.
Thanks, everybody.